Welcome to Frequency. I'm Jenni Field.
And I'm Chuck Gose. Frequency is your go-to for real talk about comms, culture, and employee experience beyond the buzzwords and straight to what matters. And Jenni, I think what matters this week for the people listening to Frequency is our news that we will be doing a live episode at Unite this fall, the event put on by Unilever.
We are. I'm really excited. So we're going to be in Nashville on the 7th and 8th of October. I'm actually speaking on the 7th with Advita Patel, but we are speaking together on the second day on the 8th. And I do believe that if you're listening to this and you want to come along, get in touch with either one of us, because I know that we have a little code we can give you for 30% off your ticket as well. And you can join online or in person. So drop us a note and we can give you that so you can grab your ticket as well.
Yeah, it'll be fun doing one of these in person, going old school with it versus this remote streaming hybrid Riverside world that we're in now, which got me also thinking, Jenni, about all this amazing technology that we have. And a couple months back, I got absolutely roasted on LinkedIn for how I use my calendar, which is I just look at the day ahead of me. I don't look at this weekly, monthly view like the rest of y'all do. But because of that behavior, I now had to invest in some very old tech to accompany me on this journey, which is I now have a giant dry erase board up to my right at all times of commitments that I've made with dates on them. I just find it so fascinating that in this high-tech world, there's still so much old tech that we all still need to rely on and should rely on at times.
I just love that you have it on I have a whiteboard next to my desk that I haven't used in about 6 months because I have the same thing with the list of like speaking events or stuff like that. But all of that lives in monday.com for me. So it's all there. Whereas have you got, is it like a chalk and blackboard or is it like a dry?
No, we've gone high tech with dry erase. Okay. I would love to have actually the chalkboard thing would be cool. But no, I'm looking at it now and it just helps me. Like, it's like the at a glance thing that's easy for me to write. Like, I would never think to go to a project management software to manage my project. So, but again, brains work in different ways. And then to wrap up this intro part, Jenni, there was a post and a conversation on LinkedIn this week, and you and I bring in a lot of these LinkedIn threads and all this into our podcast. And this one, it was one of those conversations where you really deep down know what the right answer is, but then there's the better answer. And so the conversation centered around, is it better to have a supportive leadership and this group of leaders that believe in communications and support you and all that, but you really don't have a budget? Or do you have unlimited budget and a leadership team that doesn't support you? I think the example was you just make pretty PowerPoint slides. And the majority of the comments, if not nearly all, were like, I want supportive leadership. Like, I want the people that believe in me. And my response was a bit different, that I was thinking, man, like, unlimited budget. Can you even imagine? I think it's almost unimaginable what you could do with unlimited budget. So I was like, I could hire a internal PR team to win those people over. Followed on with, if I had unlimited budget, I could just buy the company and fire the leaders. So it got me thinking more about this world that we're in, where we know with these aspirational goals of what we want comms to be versus the reality of what we actually can do.
Yeah. And I loved your thinking there, like, I'll just buy it and just, change it all up, because why not? But it also got me thinking about, does any other profession ask this sort of question? Like, we're so woe is me. Like, I can't have everything. I've got to choose between these two things. Like, it just always feels like we're always a bit down on ourselves and we can't possibly have both. And yes, supportive leadership would be great, but if you don't have any, that goes hand in hand with having budget. So it's not really one or the other. And I've had both, and I've had one or the other. And it was easier having budget than having supportive leadership team.
But you've never had unlimited budget.
I've never had unlimited budget, but I've had a big budget and an unsupportive leadership team, and I got a lot done. versus having, yeah, I've had a real mishmash of that. I feel like it's a whole Venn diagram of overlap of what it actually means and what the outcomes are.
Your chances of having a supportive leadership team are infinitely greater than having unlimited, but I think people not a bit like unlimited. You could literally do anything.
Yeah,
And people are saying, I want supportive leadership. I okay. Let's keep this train going,
that's
Jenni.
where we are. So articles for this week, I'm going to be talking about some recent research from the team at Staffbase into the world of internal comms. I'm going to bring to the conversation a story in the news about an organization that charges employees for booking meeting rooms. I'm also going to come into the conversation about return to office because we can't not talk
Yes.
about it. But the real issue of hybrid work, this was brought to us by someone on LinkedIn, and what the latest data is around some of that. And I also want to talk about why managers are so miserable. And that's why I want us to start today with a recent article in the Wall Street Journal, which is linking to a study from Gallup. And it says that only 27% of managers globally feel involved and enthusiastic about their work. This is a 3-point drop from last year and really far below the 50+% levels that were seen before the pandemic. Overall employee engagement is down to 21% worldwide, which is a record low. There's a bit of chat about why this is happening. So there's a few things that they're saying are the reasons behind this. Some of it is the workload explosion. So managers are now overseeing nearly 3 times as many direct reports, and that's linked partly to the pandemic reorganizations and efficiency drives. We've got the hybrid challenge. So how people are having to adapt to leading hybrid remote teams and the complexity around communication and all of those things that people haven't been trained for. We've got a bit of a promotion misalignment where only 44% of managers report receiving any formal leadership training. We've touched on this on previous episodes before. So that means people are being promoted based on technical things rather than people skills. We've got a demographic issue. So we've got young and female managers seeing the steepest engagement declines, and there's fewer mentorship opportunities. But really, this is talking about the fact that disengaged managers lead to disengaged teams. And that links to hundreds of billions in lost productivity globally. Now, this really got me thinking because if the manager's engagement is low, then that really does suggest that this is the knock on effect to employees, which is really high. That statistic at the beginning was only 27% of managers feel involved and enthusiastic. So if this is happening, what can communicators do about it? And it started me thinking about, have I ever been to a conference where someone has presented about a campaign they've done to really engage, communicate with, upskill managers? And I've never heard that at a conference, I don't think, in my 20 years. I do have a previous client who's doing a project on this where they are targeting managers as sort of the heart of the organization. They're still early days with that, but they are definitely going after that group. But I don't think I've ever heard that. And I suppose my question is, what does this mean for comms people? Like, we've talked about things like what's in the control and influence of comms in recent episodes, but what should comms people be doing with this information? What's the role they can play in helping us change this issue with middle managers?
I was wondering if we were going to get to a question
I
there,
know.
Jenni.
I had quite a lot to say there, and I've probably got about 6 questions in there in amongst it all anyway.
One, it didn't seem like there was any good news in any of the data that came out of that. And when you shared this article with me, I was thinking back. I truly do believe you and I had this conversation probably 10 years ago, whether it was online or in person or whatever it was, going back to the State of the Sector report, again, close to a decade ago, where year after year after year, it kept stating like managers are important, but nobody's doing anything about it. And so this is just the same story over
Mhm.
and over and over again. So I don't see, I hate to use the word, there's no such thing as all. I don't see people doing anything about this. I think they're not focused on managers. I do think there are some teams, so there's probably some people out there. So good for you if you are. Great for you if you are. I don't see that focus, but I really think it's important for companies to look at what does it mean to be a manager? What are you doing even outside of comms
Mm.
for managers? Not even from a promotion standpoint. Like there used to be a thing called a people manager, and that's all somebody did was manage a team. That was their job. Now they have a job
Mhm.
and they're managing a team. I think that's what we're now seeing the effects of. It's managing a team is a job, and then you're also piling on day-to-day responsibilities of your own job. And I think that's a lot for anybody out there to manage, handle, be successful with. Of course, there are superheroes out there who find ways to make this happen, but it takes a heroic effort to make that happen. So I think I put this on the companies to say, what are you actually doing to help
Mm.
managers? And I'd say it's probably very little.
But do you think it's just because there's this is like you said, this has been a problem for 10, 15, however many years, and no action seems to be taken. This is gonna be my thread for this episode. I can feel I can feel it bubbling. Um, we talk a lot, we've got a lot of insight, but there's no action. And I came back to this when I think I slapped my thigh the other week about, like, why is nothing happening? Is it just that it's not enough of an issue for the performance of the organization, even though people are saying, like Gallup are saying it's costing billions, in productivity, it's clearly not enough of an issue for organizations to invest in it. Because if it was, then we wouldn't be talking about it for 10 years,
I don't
surely.
think it's not the productivity that you easily see walking out the door, or it's a line item somewhere. That's the problem. It's that
Yeah,
slow drip. It's that leaky faucet in an organization that just it's the slow bleed, whatever you want to call it, that is just eroding
yeah,
things. I think, we had the term quiet cracking or whatever it was,
did.
like
Yeah, it
what
was. Yeah.
previous it's those little moments that start to build into bigger moments. I think the more interesting data point for me is looking at younger managers and female managers seeing the steepest engagement declines.
Mm,
That seems like an area that, because if you're just talking about managers in general, okay, that's a big problem and a big solution that is almost too hard to manage. But okay, let's look at younger managers. Let's look at female managers. What can we do? Those are the biggest issues across organizations. You can then perhaps laser in and focus and then learn more from that. But there again, I don't see people doing that. I don't see communicators seeing themselves as the solution to the problem. I don't see
mm.
HR seeing themselves as a solution to the problem. And until a leadership team, I think, calls out the issue or calls out the problem, everybody's just going to keep trying to solve their own.
I think that is the issue, isn't it? It just sort of falls through the cracks of different
Yeah.
departments. It just doesn't really get picked up. Talking of things falling through the cracks, the next article is all about hybrid. Now, this was highlighted by Daniel Pauling to me on LinkedIn. So thank you, Daniel. And it was an article in Harvard Business Review talking about the fact that hybrid still isn't working. Now, the article talks about the fact there's evidence that suggests that it's hurting collaboration, it's exacerbating social isolation, and it's weakening culture. There is a growing body of evidence that shows that hybrid or remote work arrangements lead to lower overall performance. However, many firms don't have the option to bring employees back on site for all sorts of reasons, like we don't have enough space or people are now dispersed all in different places. And I think there's also a bit of a fear of that rebellion that we see a lot of the time of people being upset by being brought back to the office. So this challenge that we're now seeing that actually for leaders, they can't manage effectively in these remote and hybrid environments in the same way they were managing before. And this is all linked to that previous point about that engagement and the challenge and having to lead in a different way. So the whole article is talking about how we need to rethink about things like cooperation and collaboration, how we can do that in a different way. And I suppose my question here is we talk a lot about the return to office and how that's a bad thing, but this data is suggesting that actually we need to be together in order to have better performance. I think you would dispute that. So that is my question: is dispute the data?
I don't know that we've said return to office is bad. I believe I've said mandatory, like 5 days a week type return to office is unnecessary. But I do think linking, okay, this new management style in a remote or hybrid world, is that then where some managers are struggling
Mm,
because they either don't have the tools or don't quite know how to do it when you can't physically see people X number of days a week. So I could see how is it the hours shift a bit? Is there these gray areas in it? I think these two articles could feed that. I can see how as a manager it could be trickier
mm,
in this remote or hybrid world. Doesn't mean that it's impossible. It's just a bit trickier than it was before. But again, for every piece of evidence, we've talked about this in previous episodes, that says remote is bad. I could find other evidence that says remote is good. I assume that every piece of research that says, hey, everybody needs to be back in the office was like funded by a real estate commercial company that's trying to get office space filled. Going to work, I think that's a new definition. What does it mean now when you say I'm going to work?
yeah.
Is it used to be a physical location. It used to mean I'm going to this place. Now going to work can mean a lot of different things. And I think we're trying to apply old labels and old measurement to this new way that we all work.
Mm. And I think we're at that tipping point now with this sort of come back to the office and the performance piece and how we're going to measure that versus and the tipping point for me is you can bring everyone back to the office to solve that problem. But actually, if you're invested in management skills, you maybe wouldn't need to do that as much because you'll help enable people to manage and lead in a hybrid or fully remote way. And I there's a book called Remote Work by Chris Dyer and Kim, whose surname now
Mm.
escapes me. And I've spoken to Chris a lot, which is why I can remember his name. And they talk, and I think it's Chris in the book says that it takes a lot of work to lead a remote company. Like it's hugely draining to lead a fully remote organization because the amount of communication and the amount of time you have to spend managing and leading when you've got a job to do as well is exhausting. So it feels like the bringing everyone back to the office might be trying to deal with an issue that's actually a management skill issue, and we haven't maybe joined those dots together.
My favorite stories on this like return to office stuff is when it comes out that like they're actually not prepared for
Yeah,
people to come back. They don't have enough desks, chairs, parking spots, whatever. And I'm like, okay, you didn't even think this through. You weren't even thinking, you're just like, we got to get people back and not actually thinking about what does that really mean to us from something as simple as chairs and desks. And imagine being
yeah,
told you've got to come back into work 5 days a week and you're like walking around like, well, where,
yeah. But
where do,
how does that happen? Like, I'm so process driven that my brain's like, I don't understand how
well,
you
it
could.
reminds me of this story that it was a retailer told me this, that they told everybody like, okay, everybody's going to be back in the office on Wednesday as this example. So it was hybrid, but
Mhm.
we want all corporate employees back in the office on Wednesday and we're going to do a town hall that day. And what didn't get connected was because people been out of the office, IT like turned down the spigot on the bandwidth in the office because they
Oh,
didn't need to pay for it. Well, no one thought to turn it back up. And guess what? Everybody shows back up and nobody can get online and
yeah,
watch it. And they're like, I could have done this from home. Like
yeah,
this would have actually worked from home. I came into work and it didn't.
yeah,
And so if you're going to bring people back in, man, you better make that a great
yeah,
experience or else.
yes. Or else. Wow. That
That's my dad or else on
Well,
that
that
one.
was good. I mean, for those of you not watching on YouTube, there was a look there that was reminded me of my mum. Like, that was slightly terrifying for a minute. Young Jenny got a bit scared then. So in the sense of talking about rooms and space, the next article was in Investopedia, and it was about the $25 billion company where employees pay to book conference rooms. Now this one really made me laugh because it was just such a different approach to to doing things. So it was talking about the fact that this company is a Japanese manufacturing firm. It's called Disco Corp, and they have a market capitalization of about $33 billion. So really, large organization. And they have created this stuff called will within the organization. So it's for activities that might cost the company money. And you earn will by taking on tasks that align with the company needs or proactively helping other people. And then you can spend that will on anything that imposes a cost to the company. So things like reserving meeting rooms or things like coffee machines or smoking areas. And there's an example in the article where I think somebody spent all of their will on an umbrella and smoking areas and stuff like that. So I've never seen anything like this, and I didn't know if you had, but my question is, have you seen anything like this? But also, do you think this could work in terms of that consideration about our actions and our impact on others, the environment? Would it stop pointless meetings, or would people just find a way around it?
So I want to take this off track for a little bit. This is a second. So I love the name Disco Corp. I don't know what this company does, but I think it's funny there's a name called Disco Corp. And I now feel like I need to have a disco ball in my office because my wife earlier today said, "You've got a hook in the ceiling. Why do you not have a disco ball up there?" And now we're
This is
talking about
time.
Disco Corp. And now
Yeah.
I think it's meant to be. This would this would never work, but I kind of secretly love this. And here's why. Because at a previous company that I worked for, it drove me crazy the amount of time wasted in all employee meetings. And so I started tracking a spreadsheet of how many employees that attended and a very basic hourly rate per employee, and then broke it down by department and how long each department spoke. So I can see, like, okay, was that actually worth that 8-minute talk? Was that worth $35,000? Because that's what that costs. That's what the time it costs for people to be a part of that. I know a lot of times that happens in the hourly environment where they're like, we can't afford to pull people off the floor because of this happens. We don't think about it a lot in the corporate environment. So I sort of love this from a visibility of the true cost of doing business. At first I thought the thing will was good. It was like, oh, you could have like free will and then there's goodwill. And so are you going to use your will to like win people over? Like do something really great for like your team? Or like, I'm going to use all my will to host this for the team. Or like, I mean, I would never invest in a smoking hut, but I'm sure whoever did that at that company, they probably won the smokers over if that's what
Yeah.
you're looking to do. I sort of love this from even like how companies sort of mismanage recognition and points and all those weird things that companies do. But if you could use those things to like, imagine Jenny, if you could be like, hey, on this next team call, I'm going to use my 10 will, and Jenny has to be on mute the entire hour. Like she can't actually chime in. Like think of the fun you could have with like just making your day better.
Yeah. Oh, thanks.
Or no, Jenny with a Y, not Jenny with an I.
Oh,
But
okay.
or if you're like, I'm going to use my 10 will this week to get out of going to meetings. Like
Yes.
there
Yeah.
could be actually a fun element to this. I do think it showcases sometimes the real cost of what it is doing business. We take for granted the time that people spend. I think we waste a lot of people's time. This sort of sends a message that there is value
Yeah.
to time.
Yeah. And actually, as you were just saying then about imagine if you were in a meeting and you could say, I'm going to use my 10 will to do whatever, um, how you could use this idea as a campaign in an organization to launch something, like just to make it fun. Like, how could you have a campaign that for this month, we're going to give everybody will points or whatever it is? Like, how do you take the essence of this and use it creatively to launch something or change behavior in your organization? I just felt like people would find a way around this. And maybe that's cultural, like in terms
Mhm.
of where this would work. But I just thought, oh, if you did that at my old place, we'd just all be in the coffee shop over the road having meetings. Like it wouldn't, we would just go somewhere else. Like it's not
But
going to.
what if you earned will by busting other people? Like you could there's all right, there's all kinds of
Yeah.
ways to earn will,
Yeah. Yeah. You
Jenny.
would just cause absolute havoc in
Well, like I thought I was thinking too, like what if you could pay, okay, I'm gonna do you if I say the Gong Show, does that you know what that means?
no.
So there is a show in the US that was like this. pre-reality TV show where acts would come on and someone could go swing up and hit a gong and they'd be done. If you could
Okay.
do that in a town hall, think
Yes.
about that. And you could be like, I'm going to use my 10 will to just get this person to zip it. And I'm going to
Yeah.
bang the gong. They're done. Oh, there's so much opportunity here. It would never work, but it would be a lot of fun to see it play out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do like the idea of making people aware of the things that cost money so that we're just more mindful. I think that's never a bad thing. Now, I'm going to wrap us up with a bigger story today, which is this latest research from the team at Staffbase. It's their 2025 International Employee Communication Impact Study. It's looking at change, crisis, and leadership, and it's how employees in Australia, Austria, Germany, Switzerland, the UK, and the US perceive internal corporate communications. Now, as we're recording it today, the USA and DAC reports are available, but some of the others aren't. So they've got doing individual ones on their website, and we'll put the link in the show notes for that, as we always do. But the full report shows some insights, which I just want to dive into here and have a bit of a chat about what it's telling us. So, unsurprisingly, it's talking about the fact that we live in a very volatile economic environment, and therefore trust is essential in organizations, and effective internal communication is the foundation upon which trust is built. But we know many companies are falling short. And while employees may express satisfaction with certain aspects of their employment, such as their co-worker relationships or time off, the data in the research exposes a deep-seated communication problem. Only 9% of non-desk based employees are very satisfied with internal communication, and a significant 38% rate communication quality as only fair or poor. Now, if we've got an erosion of trust fueled by poor communication, all of that poses a real threat to organizational stability and employee engagement, all stuff we've talked about. Now, in the overview of the study, they list 8 things that are key takeaways. I've got 3 of those to discuss here that I felt were more closely linked to organizational impact. So, the first one is poor communication drives turnover. 63% of employees who are considering leaving their jobs cite poor internal communication as a contributing factor. The second is the connection between clear comms and job satisfaction. So, clarity in leadership communication and during change tends to have an effect on other areas. When employees report that leadership communication is very clear, they are 3 times as happy in their roles compared to the ones who state that communication is not clear at all. And the third point is loneliness at work is a communication issue. Side note from me, is it? The statistics here are 10% of employees feel lonely at work, either always or often, with another 23% who say they sometimes feel lonely. So companies can do better at fostering meaningful connections at work. Only 20% of employees feel their employer does a very good job in this area. I'm assuming this connection between communication and loneliness is this meaningful connection piece. So, question. Some of the things in this report for me are not new. The stats on deskless workers echoed the stats and research I've done myself back in 2019. So it's no surprise there. But there is data here that is starting to bring together organizational impact, outcomes, and communication, which I do quite like. So, what are your thoughts on the data? And do you think loneliness is a communication issue?
Let's tackle the first one first. Some of the data. First off, there is a ton of data. So I'm not surprised they don't have all the various country reports out. There is a lot of data to sort through. The couple of the data points that stood out to me. Actually, before we get to data points, bigger topic here. I'm starting to get a little exhausted by this non-desk versus desk or deskless versus desk-based employees. Like, I wonder how, like, is that creating a divisive issue in our minds when we're reading this? Because I don't know that the normal employee base thinks about things that way, but that's for another topic. The data point that stood out to me was that it said like 10%, I think it was, or somewhere around there, only are very satisfied with the internal communication quality, and that 40% rated as fair or poor. Like, okay, communicators, there you go. They're not liking what you're putting down. So change it. It might be the most beautifully written, artfully written story, and you might be proud of it, but they actually don't like it. So what do we do with that? Now is the time to change. And even another data point was like 38% of employees rate the quality of news and information they receive from their employer as excellent or very good. So 62% say it's not. Okay, there's something to improve
Hmm.
upon. So I think a lot of these data points, there is some good news to your point earlier, Jenni, like around the people that do rate it as excellent are more likely to stay. If it's clear, they're happy in their roles. Like all of those things is great. What I think would be interesting to see is where are those people? Like, are all those people from the same company, or is it levels in the company that are seeing this,
Hmm.
or is it this deskless desk divide that we're creating? It's a ton of data. None of it is earth shattering, but like you said, it sort of cements a lot of things that we already know. But if I was in a communication role, I think what I would take away is to say, we've got to do better. And I think we've talked about this in the past too. One of the great things about doing this podcast is we get to look at a lot of different research from other places and start to connect the dots. So like there's Work Vivo research that talks about how frontline employees don't even know who their leaders are. Okay, I put that on leaders, not employees. In the stat-based research, it's like 1 in 5 non-desk employees, which you could say are frontline, say they ever hear from senior leadership. Okay, so this is maybe not a communication problem. This is a leadership problem and a trust challenge out there that they're not getting what they need. And I think this is a problem that actually communicators can solve.
Yes,
So you were
but
biting your nails there as I
I
was going through
was,
my.
because I'm trying not to say anything while you're talking. And I've learned over the years that if I move my hand, it then stops me from going blah, blah, blah. So so I don't think we're causing a divide between deskless and desk-based workers, because they are culturally very different, and I think we need to understand that culture. The research I've done does that. I don't see this research that's putting this sort of one group against the other in some of these other research reports as really delving into that cultural piece, because ultimately these reports are coming out from tech platforms who want to sell their tech product. So they're going to find the stats that support the need for a technology solution that's going to reach this population. That's the ultimate goal. And I think we have to call that out, because even though this research is helpful and it's insightful, there is a goal behind that research. And that's really what led me to do mine, was because I don't have a tech platform. I don't have that to sell. I just want to make the communication, the experience better. And I think we do have to be mindful of all the events and things we go to and the link to those things. For me, I do think we do have to make that distinction between the desk based and desk assist. But to your point, none of this is new. The statistics about the quality of the communication isn't new. I did research in 2021 about line managers, and that report showed that 42% of line managers have to rewrite communication that they get from the centre for their employees and for their teams. That's nearly half. So when I see data like this, I'm like, it's the same. To your point, there's nothing here that's new. There's a few different takes on the correlation between outcomes and things, which is helpful, but it's not new. And now we've got a ton of data that's going to get people looking and talking about that data like we are. But where's the action? If the data is saying the same thing every single year about deskless workers, about line managers, about the quality of communication, no matter what technology tool you use, it's not going to solve that problem. So I just, I don't know how helpful so much data is when there's doesn't seem to be the action that's needed on the back of that. Like, where's the action that's actually doing anything that's not a technology solution?
But what if I'm gonna take another side to this, Jenni? What if the technology solution does help solve that? And we're taking this bias that, well, because they say this, of course they want you to buy their stuff, and that is true. But some of their data does show that. So I think the example they gave was around crisis comms, like people that are using tech in this space,
Hmm.
specifically an
Yeah.
employee app, rated it better.
Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
if the tech does help? It's not going to be the end all be all, but
It's
what if
it,
it actually does help?
so I agree. It's not going to be the be all and end all because there has to be a bigger strategy about how we're going to fix communication. But if the tech helped, and some of these tech platforms have been out for a long time,
Hmm.
if the tech really helped, then we wouldn't be seeing this issue coming up again and again and again. When I did a masterclass on how to communicate with deskless workers last year, over 500 people registered to attend that. Like, that is staggering to me in my world that that
Hmm.
number of people still need to understand and get the data and get the insight. If tech was the solution, then I don't I don't think it would be as high on the list. So I think that's what I'm seeing is it that people don't have the ability to invest in the right tech, so that's why it's still an issue? Is it that the tech is just so expensive that people just can't afford it because it's out of the budget of internal comms and that's never gonna happen? Like, what's like, I'm all about what's really going on, and I think I'm with you that tech does have a role to play, absolutely, but it's not the silver bullet that's gonna solve all the problems, and I think that's where it's
Hmm.
often billed, whereas there's so many other things to consider, but I'd love to not be talking about this in 10 years. I'd love it if in 10 years' time, this issue about deskless versus desk-based and how we is not an issue. Like, we've solved it. We know what we're doing. We're just getting it done and everyone's cracking on with a bit of tech, with a bit of training, with a bit of this. I just can't see that happening. And I
Yeah, don't hold your breath on that one.
come on, come on. 2035, when we're on our 7 millionth episode of Frequency,
Yeah,
it'll be done.
as someone who has worked for a handful of tech companies over the year, it comes down to how people actually use the tool. And I'll even break it down even simpler. A lot of people like to blame PowerPoint for horrible presentations. Guess what? It's not PowerPoint that's making the horrible presentations. It's the people using PowerPoint that are making the horrible presentations.
And when you say the people, with this analogy, are you talking about the comms people that are trying to
No,
use
I'm
the
just saying in
tool?
general, just
Just
people that
just
make
people in general.
presentations in general. People like to say, I hate PowerPoint. No, you hate how people use
Hmm.
PowerPoint. That's what you hate. And the same thing with technology. There are different levels that people are using it. There are organizations that are leveraging it to the max are, and I wonder if that's where we're seeing the higher scores versus the ones to your point who either haven't invested, can't invest, won't invest, are willing to take whatever's free, whatever that might be. When if you did build the business case for it and you know that tech helps, like that's a step closer to the solution. And if and there again, if employees see, okay, a company is not really investing in this, why should I? I think
Mm,
that's then where the quality gets to be poor.
okay. Okay, to take us off the tech piece, what about this loneliness piece in the research that says it's
That's putting a lot on the shoulders of a company. Like that's an element of someone's life. I don't know that that's for the company to solve.
well, it's a
Are there
communication
things
issue. They're saying it's a
well,
communication.
even I'm just bringing it out of the comms level and saying as a company, there are things companies can do to help bridge connections between people. But there again, is this one of those remote hybrid return to office
Mm,
type things? And let's say that somebody that's remote is more likely to be lonely than someone who's returned to office. Like, I don't know, maybe if you go to office and no one talks to you, maybe that's worse than no one talking to you when you're at home. Like, there's a lot of dynamics to play into this. Work life is a part of that, but it's not the reason. It could be contributing, it could be helping in that. But to put it on comms, that is a big burden to say that you can solve this issue because I don't think that's the
no.
case at all.
No, to me, it all comes back to a manager issue of how you're building your team and how you're sort of doing those check-ins. But loneliness is much bigger. And I just, as soon as I read that sort of loneliness as a communication issue, I was like, oh, that's uncomfortable for me hugely that that's falling there. So yeah, yeah, definitely not for me. Anything else in the report and the data that you want to touch on before I move us into our
Well,
freakouts for
just
this?
to go back onto the loneliness thing, I think even a manager that's a big burden for them to you that might not be something you can actually fix or solve. You might talk to someone every single day and not have any indication that that person is lonely or suffering from loneliness.
Mhm.
It's that is a really deep issue.
Yeah.
that someone would have to almost confess or come out and share that struggle. And then it's a matter of, does the company have resources available
Hmm.
for that person? But just going to someone and saying, are you lonely? Yes or no? Isn't that's certainly not going to fix anything.
I think it's always my question when I see reports like this is what was the question you asked? Like even if we come back to the deskless worker stuff where it's, the percentages that were shared in there around how many people thought the quality. I'm like, what did you ask? What did you
Mhm.
say? How would you rate the internal communication here? Because I guarantee that doesn't mean anything to a normal
Well,
employee.
that
Like,
I'm glad you
what
mentioned that
and they
because
never share the questions. They never share and unless you complete it, which I don't ever complete because it's not for me, that's the bit I'm interested in, is what were the questions? How did you do this?
yeah, if you say internal communication to a frontline employee, I'm curious, like what does that mean to them?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a
yeah.
good point.
And I had this conversation with my sister the other day, who's a nurse, and so we were chatting about it, and I said, "If what would you think it would be?" And she said, "Well, we've got 3 WhatsApp groups, we've got 2 notice boards, we've got these team." Like, all of that to me is internal. So which one do you want me to talk about? Like,
Right.
which and I was like, "Exactly, right,
Yeah.
that's the challenge." So,
Yeah.
okay, that's it for the articles then this week. What are you freaking out about?
So my big freak out this week and my excitement is I was able to finally come public with this. And I announced it to our ecology community first, because I always want to share news with them before I share it with the rest of the world. Many, many months of work to make this happen, but Ecology is officially partnering with Transform, which is an event that takes place in March in Las Vegas. So great spot to be in March. Used to be Transform HR. It is now all HR and employee experience. And after attending the past couple of years, it was great to be there and great to be part of those conversations, but there wasn't enough. Everybody talked around communications and never about communications. So I pitched Transform to let me come in and lead a day-long summit all around the role that communications plays in the employee experience. And so that's what's going to happen at Transform. So it's a really great partnership between Ecology and them. Very proud of what we're going to build. We still have a lot more work to do to get there, but March 2026, that's happening. So I'll put a link to the event in the show notes so you can check it out. The agenda is still being formulated because we're still many months away,
Mhm.
but very excited about this partnership and putting Ecology into this next stage of HR conversation that's out
Yeah.
there.
I'm so excited. Can people get tickets for the event now, or are tickets not on sale yet?
Yes, you can
Yep.
get tickets now for Transform next year. The full agenda is not fleshed out, though your ticket will include access to this, and this will be limited to, I think, around 40 seats.
Okay,
The
wow.
event is getting so big, space is becoming an issue. They're moving it in future years, not out of Las Vegas, thankfully, but it's at Wynn, so great resort in Las Vegas, high end. We'll have about 40 spots, 40 seats available. So if you do sign up, make sure when this opens up, you're able to grab a seat at the EX Summit.
Lovely. I'm very excited for you. I know it was conversations you were having for a while, so I was
Yeah.
really excited to see it all be announced. So I think it's great news. My freak out this week is some stuff I was thinking about last weekend when I was out for a walk. Is why is work bad? So it's been on my mind. I did a little LinkedIn post about it, about how we're being conditioned to believe that work is bad when it might not be. And I posted it on LinkedIn and got a few comments back about being privileged in a consultancy role, that I get to do what I love. But honestly, I've enjoyed every job I've had, whether it was working in an office, whether it was working in a shop, working in a bar. There are other jobs I'm not going to mention, but I've enjoyed them all. And I'm not sure where this sort of narrative has come from about work being bad. And I think it started to think about it from all the return to office debates. Like, this is awful that we've got to spend more time at work. Like, why? Why? Why is work bad? That's what's in my mind this week on my
Yeah, I
walk.
think it's again, it's that definition of work. And I think this was the comment that I left was it's people might enjoy what they do, they just might enjoy who they do it
Yeah.
for. So what is work? Is it where you work? Is it what you
Yeah.
do? And I think that's now where people are more vocal about it, maybe than in the past. We had talked previously, there was that generational aspect of the evolution of work. And are we now seeing that where people now feel like they speak more freely about their workplace and they're separating
Mm,
that from what they do? I guess I'm not really necessarily hearing that work is bad. Like, I think,
I feel like there's just an undercurrent in stories and things that we want to work less and live more.
well, you need your evenings back,
Well,
Jenny.
yeah, well, I do. Yes, this is a true story. It's a true story.
You need to get your
Um,
evenings back.
Thank you for joining us this week. As always, all the articles that have inspired this conversation are in the show notes. And don't forget to rate and review after you've listened. Please do subscribe so that you don't miss another episode. And pass this along to someone you think would enjoy listening or watching, because you can now find Frequency on YouTube. Thank you to Poet Ali for contributing the music to the show, and we'll be back next week with more news, insights, and opinions about everything comms and leadership in workplaces today. Keep tuning in and turning up.